Sung-hyo is a skilled architect who has won many awards for his works. Besides being an architect, he also serves as the CEO of his own company. Meanwhile, Sok-ryu, his childhood friend, is known to be very intelligent. Thanks to her intelligence, she earned a scholarship to study in America and worked at a large company she had always dreamed of. Because of their achievements, it is not surprising that their mothers, who are also friends, proudly boast about their children. It is told that Ryu will soon get married. Ryu's mother, Misuk, distributes wedding invitations to all her close friends. However, she does not know the truth that Ryu has cancelled the wedding and secretly returned to Korea. Ryu only told her friend, Moyam, to pick her up at the airport.
이리 와, 안겨.
잘못 처먹었냐? 습격을 왜 이래?
At a small restaurant, Moyam asks Ryu why she returned to Korea, but at that moment, Ryu's younger brother, Dong-jin, arrives, making Ryu panic. Ryu does not want her family to know about her return and claims that she wants to surprise them. She asks Moyam to stay with her all day, but since Moyam is a paramedic and receives an emergency call, Ryu has no choice but to go home alone. On her way home, Ryu accidentally meets Sung-hyo right in front of his new office, but at that moment, she also sees her parents and immediately hides. That night, Ryu is forced to return home after Sung-hyo insists. Before entering the house, Ryu asks Sung-hyo to let her stay at his office for the night, as she is afraid that her mother will scold her upon finding out that she cancelled her wedding. Their conversation is overheard by Ryu's parents. Naturally, her mother is furious upon learning that Ryu has cancelled her wedding. Additionally, Ryu also resigned from her job and is now officially unemployed. Seeing her parents' anger, Ryu quickly asks Sung-hyo to run away with her to escape the tense situation. Afterward, Ryu reveals the reason she returned to Korea. She feels that her life has become too busy and overwhelming, and she needs time to rest. After talking for a long time, Sung-hyo finally convinces Ryu to go home, as he believes that Aunt Misuk will not be angry at her anymore.
내가 배송이 잡아왔으니까 너 먹다 산.
In front of Sung-hyo's friends, Ryu tells them that she once took care of Sung-hyo when he was little, right after he moved from France. However, Sung-hyo responds differently, saying that all this time, Ryu has only bothered and troubled him. Despite that, Ryu seems to start feeling comfortable being back in Korea and is able to relax away from the stresses of work. The decision Ryu made was a big step full of risks, but for her, it was the best decision she had ever made. She wants to enjoy her life first before facing the next challenges. Actually, everyone is still wondering about the real reason behind Ryu's return to Korea. Although he does not force her, Sung-hyo tries to uncover the story behind her return. However, Ryu is still reluctant to open up and reveal the truth that she experienced heavy pressure at her previous workplace. She was often the subject of gossip among her colleagues, and when she truly needed support, she instead discovered that her boyfriend was cheating on her with another woman.
안녕히 계세요.
Since she was not allowed to attend the inauguration of Sung-hyo's new office by her mother, Ryu finally gives Sung-hyo a small gift, a pomegranate tree. She also apologizes for not being able to attend, giving the excuse that she has an important meeting. During the opening ceremony of the new office, Sung-hyo's mother's friends and Ryu's mother gathered. In the middle of their conversation, a woman brought up the topic of Ryu's cancelled engagement, which, of course, made Ryu's mother feel embarrassed. Fortunately, the other friends quickly changed the subject. Even though Ryu had promised not to attend, she was forced to come to deliver the brooch her mother was looking for. However, her presence led to regret, as her mother made up stories in front of her friends to cover up her embarrassment about Ryu's broken engagement. She also exaggerated Ryu's success abroad.
근데 이번에 퇴사했어. 하도 여러 군데 연락이 와서 가지고 내가 아주 안쓰러워 죽겠어.
After the event, Ryu argued with her mother, who kept pressuring her to return to America. Ryu firmly refused and expressed her frustration with her mother's constant demands for her to be successful and someone to be proud of. She wished her mother could understand how exhausting her life had been. Ryu had worked hard all this time to make her mother proud, excelling as a student, earning scholarships, and working in America, all just to gain her mother's approval. However, she now felt like she had no time to enjoy herself, not even to find happiness in her own life. The argument led Ryu to leave home, and she didn't return until late at night. Knowing this, Sung-hyo decided to accompany Ryu at the park. Despite the heavy rain, Sung-hyo stayed by Ryu's side as she cried. After applying for various jobs, Ryu was surprised to find that her room, which had been used as a storage space, had been restored by her mother with Sung-hyo's help. Ryu was overjoyed and forgave her mother, feeling happy that Sung-hyo had managed to make her room look just like it did when they were still in school. Not only that, but Sung-hyo had also decided to move back in with his parents, making their rooms next to each other again. This made it easier for Ryu to bother Sung-hyo, though he didn't mind the interruptions too much. Even though Ryu could be loud, she was always there to support him in every situation, including when he was a school swimming athlete and lacked support from his parents, who were too busy working. Even now, Sung-hyo's parents remained highly focused on their careers and rarely had time to have breakfast together. Feeling bored, Ryu visited her parents at their shop, where she coincidentally met her high school teacher. Since she had nothing else to do, she decided to help her teacher at school by giving motivational talks to students in class. However, the mood turned somber when one of the students asked about Ryu's dream back in high school. As she left the classroom, Ryu accidentally ran into Sung-hyo, who was signing up as a contestant in a school renovation design competition. There, they agreed to dig up the time capsule they had buried together. However, overwhelmed by her emotions, Ryu chose to leave first, walking away from Sung-hyo. Ryu was starting to feel tired of her current activities. She briefly considered returning to work, but doubts lingered, fearing she would face the same struggles again. Meanwhile, Jung Moyam, a paramedic, found a child experiencing seizures. Without hesitation, she rushed the child to the hospital. However, heavy traffic caused a major delay, making the situation even more urgent. Amid the panic, a man quickly stepped in to clear the way for the ambulance, helping Moyam reach the hospital in time to save the child. On one hand, Ryu was forced to attend a job interview due to an application she had sent a few days earlier. However, when asked about her work experience, memories from the past resurfaced, worsening her mood. With a heavy heart, she decided to decline the job offer. In an emotionally unstable state, Ryu met Sung-hyo again. Their meeting ended in a heated argument and misunderstanding between them. During their conversation, Ryu sarcastically remarked how Sung-hyo's life had always gone smoothly and how he had always achieved his dreams easily. But in reality, Ryu knew that Sung-hyo had once buried his dream of becoming a professional swimmer after an accident just before the Olympics, forcing him to give up his aspirations. The next day, still overwhelmed by boredom and unemployment, Ryu felt lost. All her life, she had only focused on things that would make her mother proud, never truly understanding what she wanted for herself. Feeling the need to find her own purpose, Ryu decided to search for the time capsule they had buried together in the past, hoping to find inspiration from the letters she once wrote. However, after searching tirelessly, she couldn't find it, because Sung-hyo had already taken it. At the school swimming pool, Sung-hyo finally met Ryu. He read the letter Ryu had written and then jumped into the pool to prevent her from taking it. Knowing that Ryu couldn't swim, at that moment, for the first time since his accident, Sung-hyo found himself swimming again. In a flashback, it was shown that Sung-hyo, overwhelmed by deep sadness, had locked himself in his room, prompting Ryu to continuously persuade him to come out. In that nostalgic moment, Ryu decided to jump into the pool despite knowing she couldn't swim. Seeing her struggling, Sung-hyo instinctively rushed to save her. They then talked about lost dreams, past regrets, and the life choices they had made and would make in the future. Instead of expressing his own dreams, Sung-hyo found himself staring at Ryu. That gaze brought back the feelings he had during high school. It turned out that he had secretly loved Ryu for a long time, but he never confessed, fearing it would ruin their friendship. After getting out of the pool, they initially planned to read the letter together. However, when Sung-hyo saw its contents, he panicked, afraid that Ryu would find out about his past feelings. Nervously, he quickly excused himself and rushed home. On his way back, Sung-hyo tried to convince himself that those feelings were just in the past and no longer mattered, but reality proved otherwise. He couldn't lie to himself, and as a result, he began feeling awkward whenever he was around Ryu. Since she had nothing else to do and was still struggling to figure out her dream, Ryu kept bothering Sung-hyo. One day, she even followed him to his office. There, she overheard news that her former company, Grip Corporation, had proposed a partnership with Sung-hyo's company to build a new office in Korea. However, Sung-hyo's company faced difficulties because they lacked employees fluent in English. His assistant, Mae Young-woo, pleaded with Ryu to help them communicate. Though hesitant at first, Ryu eventually agreed to assist. They ended up working late into the night at the office and went home together. At a convenience store, they ran into Moyam and a reporter named Kong Dano, who were arguing over a can of drink. Dano had once covered an award ceremony where Sung Hyo was honored, and he was also the man who had cleared the way for an ambulance a few days ago. However, Moyam hadn't realized it. After that, the three of them continued their way home. During the journey, Ryu brought up the time capsule they had opened and noticed that Moyam's letter was missing. It turned out that Moyam had already opened it beforehand. Upon hearing this, Sung Hyo panicked because the letter contained his confession of feelings for Ryu, and he was afraid that Moyam had already read it. Fortunately, Moyam had kept the secret safe all this time. The next day, Ryu helped Sung Hyo conduct an online meeting with his former company. At first, the meeting went smoothly. However, in his excitement over the new project, Mae Young-woo forgot to turn off the online connection. As a result, Ryu accidentally overheard a conversation from Grip Corporation, revealing that they had chosen another company for the project instead of Sung Hyo's. Filled with anger, Ryu immediately informed Sung Hyo and advised him to stop working on the design. However, Sung Hyo refused Ryu's suggestion. Even though his work might not be accepted, he still wanted to deliver his best. This led to a heated argument between the two, culminating in Ryu firmly declaring that she would no longer help Sung Hyo. Though Moyam was aware of their fight, she chose not to comment much. Instead, she shared a story about a young girl she had met in the park, who happened to share the same interests as her. Although she didn't know the girl's name or where she lived, Moyam felt as if she had found a new friend. In addition, Moyam revealed that she was taking an advanced paramedic exam to become Korea's first paramedic assigned to Antarctica. The next day, despite still feeling upset, Ryu continued her duty as Sung Hyo's interpreter. The meeting was supposed to proceed smoothly, but the presence of one of Grip Corporation's employees, who turned out to be Ryu's former colleague, triggered her past trauma. That colleague had once taken advantage of her, making it difficult for Ryu to control her emotions. After the meeting ended, tensions escalated when Chris, Ryu's former colleague, mockingly referred to her as Korea's artificial intelligence. Hearing this, Sung Hyo nearly lost his temper and was about to punch Chris. However, Ryu took control of the situation and landed a punch on Chris herself without hesitation. But it didn't stop there. Ryu publicly announced her resignation from Grip Corporation as a protest against the mistreatment and humiliation she had endured from Chris. It turned out that during her time at Grip Corporation, Chris had only used her for his own benefit. Overcome with anger, Ryu was determined to report all of Chris's fraudulent activities and financial embezzlement within the company. Once Ryu had calmed down, Sung Hyo approached her and spoke to her in a friendly tone. He even tried to cheer her up, making Ryu feel more at ease. Her mood improved even more when Mae Young-woo arrived with good news. Their project proposal had been approved for the new headquarters in Korea. Not only that, but Mae Young-woo also revealed that Chris would soon be fired, as he had managed to record their conversation and send it to Grip Corporation's CEO, who, as it turned out, had been following and was friends with him on social media. After hearing the news, Ryu felt overjoyed and spontaneously hugged Sung Hyo. The hug made Sung Hyo feel a little awkward, as it reminded him of the feelings he had long hidden for Ryu. Sung Hyo recalled the moment when Ryu first hugged him so tightly, back when Sung Hyo visited America during college break to bring Ryu his favorite comics. However, that visit ended in heartbreak when Sung Hyo found out that Ryu already had a boyfriend. Now, knowing that Ryu's engagement had been called off, Sung Hyo felt like he had another chance to love Ryu, but despite this, he still hesitated, afraid that confessing his feelings would ruin the friendship they had built over the years. Sung Hyo's happiness did not last long. Doubt crept in when he overheard Ryu's conversation with Moyam about the broken engagement. It became clear that Ryu still hadn't moved on from her ex-fiancé. This realization left Sung Hyo trapped in uncertainty and deep sadness once again. The next day, upon arriving at the office, Sung Hyo's demeanor suddenly changed. He immediately terminated Ryu's contract, using the excuse that he didn't want Ryu to be involved with Grip Corporation again. Additionally, he became more sensitive whenever Ryu tried to talk to him. Their tension escalated into an argument when Sung Hyo firmly stated that he hated anyone bringing up his past. Suddenly, a woman appeared and hugged Sung Hyo. It was Jang Tae-wei, his ex-girlfriend who had once cheated on him. Tae-wei had come to ask for Sung Hyo's help with her art project. Initially, Sung Hyo intended to refuse, but after persistent persuasion from Mayeon Woo, he reconsidered. He felt conflicted, worried that accepting the offer might upset Ryu. After leaving the office, Sung Hyo passed by Ryu's parents' food stall and saw Ryu's father smoking again. They ended up chatting and drinking together until Sung Hyo got drunk. As a result, he ended up staying over at Ryu's house, sleeping in Dong Jin's room. The next morning, Ryu had no idea that Sung Hyo had stayed over. Thinking the person sleeping in the room was Dong Jin, she angrily called out to Sung Hyo in a harsh tone, startling him awake. Dong Jin, witnessing the scene, completely misunderstood and rushed to report it to his father. Panicking upon hearing the report, Sung Hyo ran after Dong Jin but, unfortunately, tripped and hit a wooden shelf. At the hospital, Sung Hyo's father, who was a doctor, treated his injury. Although the injury on his leg wasn't too severe, he still had to wear a cast, making it difficult for him to move. Seeing this, Ryu offered to be Sung Hyo's personal driver until he recovered. At first, Sung Hyo refused, but after realizing he couldn't drive in his condition, he finally agreed. Later, they went to Tae Hui's house. Throughout the journey, Sung Hyo worried that Ryu might feel hurt by Tae Hui's tendency to bring up their past relationship. However, he had no idea whether Ryu felt the same way about him or not. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Moyeon, who was on duty, encountered the little girl she had met at the park once again. The girl, named Yeondu, was home alone and sick, so she called for medical help. Moyeon took Yeondu to the hospital and was shocked to learn that she was Kang Dano's daughter. After things settled down, Moyeon scolded Dano for being negligent in taking care of Yeondu. However, Yeondu immediately defended her father and firmly told Moyeon that she didn't want to talk to her anymore for scolding him. Meanwhile, in another place, after enjoying the meal prepared by Ryu, Tae Wei praised the dish and mentioned that Ryu seemed to genuinely enjoy cooking. That compliment made Ryu start considering pursuing a career in the culinary field seriously. Her mind was occupied by Tae Hui's words, making it difficult for her to sleep. She then decided to take a walk in the yard. At the same time, Sung Hyo, who was also still awake, accompanied Ryu while looking at the jars stored in the yard. There, Ryu shared about her newfound hobby in cooking. While deep inside, Sung Hyo realized that his feelings for Ryu had never faded. The next morning, the atmosphere at Sung Hyo's house felt tense. His parents were busy with their own affairs, making their relationship seem cold and distant. However, the tension quickly shifted after Ryu arrived, sent by her mother to deliver food. Since she often visited, Aunt Nam allowed Ryu to enter Sung Hyo's room to invite him to breakfast. While Sung Hyo was in the shower, Ryu took the opportunity to search for the letter from the time capsule that Sung Hyo had hidden. However, the moment Sung Hyo saw Ryu holding the letter, he immediately snatched it away and threw it away, claiming that its contents were just a joke. In truth, Sung Hyo was embarrassed that his feelings for Ryu might be exposed. However, since Ryu was not very perceptive, she did not think much of Sung Hyo's panicked reaction and was merely confused. Ryu started revisiting her old YouTube channel, where she had uploaded her cooking videos. Her passion for the culinary world grew stronger, leading her to secretly enroll in a cooking class, only informing Moyeon about it. She also planned to celebrate her achievement with Sung Hyo and Moyeon. However, Sung Hyo continued to avoid Ryu, overwhelmed by his own emotions. One day, while alone, Sung Hyo accidentally ran into Dano, who had just moved into the neighborhood. In an attempt to form a new friendship, Dano invited Sung Hyo to visit his new home. There, they shared stories about their lives. During the conversation, Sung Hyo mentioned that someone he knew had found their true love but lacked the courage to confess. Hearing this, Dano advised that the person should express their feelings before it was too late. In reality, Dano already knew who Sung Hyo was referring to. Unbeknownst to them, Moyeon, who happened to be Dano's neighbor, overheard the entire conversation. Before heading home, Sung Hyo accidentally saw Uncle Bae, Ryu's father, holding the hand of a drunken woman. The sight brought back painful memories of his past when his mother left him for another man. Not wanting Ryu to go through the same experience, Sung Hyo decided to wait for Uncle Bae to return home. When they finally met, Sung Hyo confronted him about his suspicious behavior. Uncle Bae explained the situation and begged Sung Hyo to keep it a secret from his wife and Ryu. Though feeling sad and concerned, Sung Hyo ultimately agreed to keep quiet. The next day, Ryu's mother complained about her husband's recent behavior, noting that he had been coming home late frequently. Her friends even suspected that Uncle Bae was having an affair. Out of concern, Ryu's mother checked his clothes and found a loan withdrawal slip. A heated argument between Uncle Bae and Ryu's mother broke out in front of their children. Eventually, Uncle Bae admitted that he had accidentally damaged a customer's watch worth 3 million won. To cover the cost, he had no choice but to work as a designated driver for drunk clients, draining the family's savings and taking out a loan. In the middle of the heated argument, Ryu's father finally expressed the feelings he had been suppressing for so long, the pain of constantly being blamed and belittled by his wife because of his low income. After letting out all his emotions, Ryu's father stepped outside to calm himself and ended up crying. Ryu then ran after him and invited him to talk at the park. Despite the complicated situation, Ryu did her best to comfort her father. The next day, Ryu tried to check the CCTV footage from a neighboring store to find the people who had blackmailed her father. However, Sung-hyo had already taken action earlier. Since hearing Ryu's father's confession, Sung-hyo had started investigating the extortionists. At that moment, Sung-hyo confronted the two scammers along with Dano and recorded everything as proof that the expensive watch they were wearing was actually a fake. Ryu's father received the news that the scammers who had been harassing him had been taken to the police station. He felt relieved and happy, allowing him to finally reconcile with his wife. As a token of appreciation, Ryu cooked a meal for Sung-hyo. However, Sung-hyo refused the offer and told Ryu not to bother him anymore. He even firmly decided to walk away from her. Seeing Sung-hyo's sudden and drastic change in attitude, Ryu was left deep in thought. She started realizing that maybe Sung-hyo had truly liked her all this time but never had the courage to confess. Realizing this, Ryu immediately ran after Sung-hyo to ask for an explanation. But just then, her ex-fiancé, Hyeon-jun, suddenly appeared to meet her. Noticing Ryu's discomfort around Hyeon-jun, Sung-hyo initially told him to leave. However, before he could go, Ryu's parents arrived. Her father was furious at Hyeon-jun, but strangely, her mother welcomed him with warmth and kindness. Outside, Sung-hyo was restless and anxious, filled with curiosity. Sensing this, Moyam approached him for a conversation. They talked about Sung-hyo's long-hidden feelings, and during that moment, Moyam advised him to confess before he lost his chance. Meanwhile, Hyeon-jun had come to Korea to apologize and try to fix his relationship with Ryu. However, Ryu firmly rejected his request, making it clear that she no longer wanted to see him. Ryu poured her heart out to Moyam, admitting that she no longer had any feelings for her ex-fiancé. What Moyam didn't realize was that Ryu had started thinking about her own feelings for her childhood friend, Sung-hyo. Instead of supporting her daughter's decision, Ryu's mother insisted that she dress up and try to rekindle her relationship with Hyeon-jun. Fortunately, right outside the house, Sung-hyo had arrived to pick Ryu up and take her to her cooking class by bicycle. As a gesture of gratitude, Yeondu invited Moyam to be her friend. Because of this new friendship, Moyam finally discovered that Dano was the man she had been searching for all along. She confirmed it after accidentally noticing his clothes. The next day, it was Sung-hyo's mother's birthday, but both her husband and son completely forgot about this important day. To make things worse, her husband had to rush to the hospital due to a major traffic accident. Meanwhile, Sung-hyo had already gone to meet Tae Wei to discuss her artwork. While meeting Tae Wei, Sung-hyo unexpectedly ran into Ryu, who was having lunch with Hyeon-jun, and seeing this made him incredibly frustrated. In short, Sung-hyo was chosen to renovate the school gym, and his teacher shared that Ryu had been very curious about the outcome of the selection, even asking the teacher about it almost every day. Not only that, the teacher also motivated and supported Sung-hyo to confess his feelings to Ryu. Hearing this, Sung-hyo realized it and gathered the courage to express his feelings. He ran to meet Ryu, not pressuring her to give an immediate answer but giving her time to consider her feelings. Meanwhile, Sung-hyo's father saw his wife with a man who had been her past lover, which left him feeling disappointed. He threw away the flowers he had bought and went back to work at the hospital. Sung-hyo was unaware of the issues in his parents' marriage and was instead preoccupied with his own feelings. He felt relieved after confessing, though a little regretful, worried that his feelings might not be reciprocated and that Ryu might distance herself from him. On the other hand, Ryu had actually liked Sung-hyo since childhood but had always denied her feelings until now. The next morning, they both agreed to set a date for Ryu to give her answer. Based on the expiration date of the milk they bought together, Sung-hyo also informed Tae Wei that he had confessed his feelings to Ryu. so Tae Wei wouldn't get too close to him. Fortunately, Tae Wei accepted the decision with understanding. Meanwhile, Ryu's mother accidentally saw her daughter leaving the cooking school and found out that Ryu had been secretly learning to cook. She told her husband about it and immediately scolded Ryu for her decision, not wanting Ryu to pursue a career in the culinary field like they had. Ryu felt sad because it seemed like her dreams had never been supported. She compared how her parents always fulfilled her younger siblings' wishes, but not hers. The argument was witnessed by Sung Hyo, who quickly calmed Ryu down and took her to comfort her. He suggested that Ryu could practice cooking at his office since the kitchen there was rarely used, which made Ryu very happy. The next morning, Sung Hyo's father suddenly brought up the topic of his delayed divorce, which had been postponed until Sung Hyo was older. Meanwhile, Sung Hyo was still preoccupied with Ryu, who was being constantly bothered by Hyeon-jun, the man who almost won Ryu's heart. That night, after Ryu finished cooking in the kitchen, she suddenly felt pain in her stomach. Instead of asking Sung Hyo for help, she asked Hyeon-jun to take her to the hospital. This was because Hyeon-jun was the only one who knew about her stomach cancer that she had suffered from when she was 30. The illness had once brought Ryu down, and she had been too afraid to tell anyone about it. After the cancer treatment, Hyeon-jun had proposed to her. Sung Hyo, not knowing about Ryu's illness, felt disappointed and sad that Ryu didn't rely on him. When Ryu suddenly recovered, Hyeon-jun proposed again. Ryu stood silent, considering her feelings, and tried on the engagement ring again. Later that night, Ryu met Sung Hyo to inform him about Hyeon-jun's proposal. She said she might accept it, explaining that their past breakup had been caused by a misunderstanding that arose due to Ryu's deteriorating mental health. After her cancer treatment, Ryu became depressed and didn't want to socialize, causing constant arguments, which eventually led to the end of their engagement. However, in reality, Ryu rejected Hyeon-jun's proposal, lying that she would return to him so that Sung Hyo would stop pursuing her, even though in her heart, Ryu deeply loved Sung Hyo. After that night, Sung Hyo seemed very exhausted from his conflict with Ryu and work problems, which caused him to get little rest, and eventually, he fell ill. Sung Hyo slept for a long time and began to hallucinate, seeing Ryu in his room, but when he woke up, Ryu was actually there, taking care of him. When Ryu went to the kitchen to prepare food, Sung Hyo accidentally found Ryu's medical report from the hospital from some time ago. From the document, Sung Hyo finally learned that Ryu had stomach cancer. While they were arguing, the conversation was overheard by Ryu's mother, and soon, the entire family found out about Ryu's condition. Ryu's mother informed her husband about the bad news, and it made the entire family feel sorrowful. Ryu tried to calm them down by saying that her condition had improved, but her mother, father, and brother still felt guilty for not treating Ryu well all this time. Sung Hyo also felt regretful for his past actions. While Ryu was in America, she often contacted him, but Sung Hyo ignored all her messages and calls because he was heartbroken after learning that Ryu was engaged to someone else. Ryu's closest people were deeply affected by the reality of her illness, and they regretted not being there for her when she needed support. Everyone began to think of ways to help Ryu recover. Sung Hyo even went to his father to ask for help to examine and take care of Ryu as best as possible. Meanwhile, Moyam, unable to hide her sadness, cried in front of Dano when they met on the way home. In that emotional night, Moyam accidentally revealed her feelings by kissing Dano. The next day, Ryu suddenly disappeared from home without taking her phone. Her mother panicked and immediately contacted Sung Hyo to ask for help in finding her. Sung Hyo left his work and searched for Ryu at the places she usually visited, but with no results. After a long search, Sung Hyo finally found Ryu, who was staring blankly at the beach. With anger, Sung Hyo scolded Ryu for making the family so sad and worried. There, Sung Hyo told Ryu to let out all her emotions because he didn't want her to keep her feelings inside until she became depressed and overwhelmed. Ryu then cried out, shouting and hitting Sung Hyo, who just stood there, letting her release all her emotions. After making up, they received news from Sung Hyo's father, who informed them that Ryu had been declared cancer-free. The stomach pain she had experienced was actually caused by a mild infection. Hearing this news, Sung Hyo was overjoyed and immediately hugged Ryu. They went back home, and secretly, Sung Hyo planned a welcome party at his father's shop. Everyone was happy to hear that Ryu had fully recovered. Hyeon-jun, who saw Ryu's happiness with her family, also felt relieved. He finally realized that Ryu seemed happiest when she was with Sung-hyo. Sincerely, Hyeon-jun decided to let go of his feelings for Ryu. He bid them farewell and returned to America, leaving his feelings behind for Ryu. That day was the day Ryu was supposed to give her answer about her feelings. However, instead of asking, Sung-hyo just accompanied Ryu and helped translate a French recipe for her. That evening, during dinner with the family, Sung-hyo was informed about his parents' plans for divorce. Sung-hyo was shocked and tried to hold back his tears before leaving with an excuse of a sudden matter to attend to. It turned out that Sung-hyo went out drinking and got heavily drunk, almost passing out, prompting the restaurant owner to call Ryu using Sung-hyo's phone. Ryu immediately came to pick him up and tried to take him home. On the way, Sung-hyo talked about the dinner with his parents and their divorce. He cried as he expressed his jealousy toward Ryu's family, who were always together and even had a family photo, something he never had despite having a complete family. After finalizing her divorce, Sung-hyo's mother went to Ryu's house to say goodbye to Ryu's mother before leaving for Africa. At that moment, Ryu gathered the courage to approach Sung-hyo's mother and tell her about Sung-hyo's sadness the night before. The story made Sung-hyo's mother fall silent. She then tried to talk to Sung-hyo, but he avoided her. Predicting that would happen, Ryu gave Sung-hyo a family photo that his father had once taken. Thanks to Ryu's encouragement, Sung-hyo finally agreed to meet his mother at the airport. However, just as he was about to leave, his father called and asked him to come to the police station immediately because an officer had found his mother's abandoned suitcase. His father then opened the suitcase and used his wife's phone to call her lover, and at that moment, everything was revealed. It turned out that Sung-hyo's mother had already retired from her job, but her friends mentioned that her behavior had been strange lately. She often forgot that she had retired and kept asking when she would be assigned again. Sung-hyo and Ryu searched for his mother in various places but could not find her. Sung-hyo even asked Ryu's mother and friends for help. They then headed to a temple in the mountains because his mother and her friends had been there before. However, before they arrived at the temple, Sung-hyo's mother had already left and had slipped into a ravine. Fortunately, Sung-hyo found one of her shoes that had fallen off, and they began searching along the cliff. Sung-hyo's father found her first. The two of them had a conversation about their past misunderstandings and finally reconciled. Sung-hyo also expressed his feelings to his parents and begged them not to go through with the divorce. A few days later, Sung-hyo left for another province to handle his new project. He invited Ryu to come with him, but she refused. 2 weeks after his departure, Ryu started feeling bored. Even though she had many activities, she still felt lonely. One day, while practicing cooking, she listened to a recording of Sung-hyo reading a French cookbook. In the recording, Ryu realized that Sung-hyo had said something in French. After translating it, she finally understood that his feelings for her were truly sincere. Determined, Ryu borrowed Moyam's car and immediately went to find Sung-hyo. When they met, Ryu confessed her feelings, revealing that she loved Sung-hyo just as much. However, their happiness was mixed with confusion as they had to explain their relationship to their parents. The situation became even more complicated when Ryu's mother suggested that she go on a blind date. Fortunately, Moyam arrived just in time, wanting to ask if her best friend was officially dating or not. When she found out that Ryu and Sung-hyo were now a couple, Moyam was overjoyed. The couple then went on a date to watch a movie in the theater. Since it was their first date, Sung-hyo seemed nervous and stiff. Meanwhile, Moyam went on a picnic with Dano and Yeondu. During the moment, Moyam confessed her feelings to Dano, but he rejected her and asked her to stay away from him. During dinner, Ryu asked Sung-hyo why he seemed nervous around her. Honestly, Sung-hyo admitted that his thoughts often wandered to things they weren't supposed to do yet. Hearing this confession, they eventually decided to spend the night together. However, the next morning, they panicked upon realizing that their parents had returned home earlier than expected. Meanwhile, in a different place, Moyam visited a cemetery to pray for a friend who had passed away. There, she accidentally saw Dano and Yeondu. Moyam was shocked to learn that Yeondu was not Dano's biological child but the daughter of his late older brother. She then approached Dano to talk, and eventually, Moyam found out that Dano's family had been in a tragic accident while on their way to a vacation. In that accident, Dano's brother, sister-in-law, and both parents lost their lives, while Yeondu was the only survivor. Since then, Dano had been raising Yondu as his own child. Meanwhile, Ryu started applying for jobs as a chef at various restaurants and hotels, but none of his attempts were successful. After continuously failing to secure a job, Ryu considered taking culinary classes in the United States. Upon hearing this, Sung-hyo was furious, and they ended up arguing. Ryu even asked Sung-hyo not to see her for a few days. On the other hand, Moyam and Dano's relationship gradually improved, and Dano finally had the courage to confess his feelings for Moyam directly in front of Moyam's mother. After only a few days apart, Sung-hyo found it difficult to concentrate on work. He even got into an accident at his workplace, which panicked Ryu and made her rush to the hospital. There, Ryu apologized for distancing herself from Sung-hyo. On their way home, Sung-hyo received news that a dish Ryu had created won third place in a cooking contest. It turned out that Sung-hyo had secretly entered Ryu into the competition without telling her. The unexpected victory made Ryu extremely happy. Seeing this, Sung-hyo started thinking about proposing to Ryu but was still unsure of how to do it. Meanwhile, Ryu was busy helping Moyam, whose love story was hindered by her mother's disapproval. They brainstormed solutions together. Dano also opened up to Sung-hyo about his relationship struggles. Sung-hyo and Ryu then arranged a meeting between Dano and Moyam at a park, giving them a chance to spend time alone and officially start their relationship. Unable to wait any longer, Sung-hyo finally decided to propose to Ryu. However, she rejected his proposal, completely shattering Sung-hyo's heart and leaving him in turmoil. Meanwhile, Moyam and Dano finally received her mother's blessing, allowing them to openly be together. That night, Sung-hyo gathered the courage to ask Ryu why she had turned him down. Ryu then honestly admitted that she was afraid her cancer might return and didn't want to be a burden to Sung-hyo. Hearing this, Sung-hyo realized how much Ryu had been holding back and reassured her that she no longer needed to worry. He truly believed she would make a full recovery. They then agreed to take their relationship to the next level. At that moment, their parents happened to be returning home and saw Sung-hyo and Ryu hugging. Their mother seemed to disapprove, worried about Ryu's health. While both Sung-hyo's father and Ryu's father supported their relationship, they even helped their children win over their wives' hearts so they could accept the situation and make peace with it. Despite the challenges, Sung-hyo and Ryu remained determined. That night, Sung-hyo secretly snuck into Ryu's room and proposed to her once again. The next day, Ryu's father had made up his mind to close his restaurant. News of this quickly spread to his wife's friends, making Sung-hyo's mother worried about her friend's condition. Ryu's mother was deeply hurt after overhearing neighborhood women gossiping about her family. Angry, she got into an argument with them, and things escalated. Sung-hyo's mother, who happened to witness the commotion, immediately stepped in to help. Due to the altercation, they were both taken to the police station until their husbands and children came to pick them up. While talking privately at the station, the two women finally agreed to give their blessing to Ryu and Sung-hyo's relationship. The day of Ryu's father's restaurant closure finally arrived. Many people came to enjoy his cooking for one last time. The day ended with an emotional farewell. Although it was difficult to shut down the restaurant that had supported his family for years, Ryu's father felt happy knowing he could finally enjoy his retirement with his loved ones. Meanwhile, Moyam was accepted for a position at a research station in Antarctica. She felt torn, having just started her relationship with Dano, making it impossible for her to leave so soon. Moreover, she hadn't gathered the courage to tell Dano about it. However, unexpectedly, Dano found out from Moyam's colleague before she could break the news herself. On the other hand, Ryu's and Sung-hyo's mothers were already discussing their children's wedding plans. As time went by, they spent more and more time together, not just for wedding preparations, but also to learn new things from each other. Sung-hyo's mother learned how to cook, while Ryu's mother studied English. Their husbands, too, enjoyed their days drinking together. Life started to feel more joyful for everyone. At first, Moyam was anxious about leaving for Antarctica, but she finally felt relieved after Dano and Yondu wholeheartedly supported her decision. Meanwhile, Ryu was overjoyed because her father had officially passed down the restaurant to her. Secretly, her father had also asked Sung-hyo to renovate the place. For days, Sung-hyo had worked on preparing the restaurant, and now Ryu finally had a place of her own. Time passed, and as Ryu prepared for her wedding, she tried on her wedding dress but suddenly decided to postpone the ceremony until Moyam returned from Antarctica. Instead, they planned a small party for Sung Hyo's parents, who had never properly celebrated their own wedding. Fast forward 10 months, Sung Hyo continued to receive new projects, even being assigned by the government to manage environmental projects. Meanwhile, Ryu successfully established her own restaurant, which had become a popular dining spot known for her healthy and creative recipes. Dano, now officially part of Moyam's family, finally moved into her home. He also planned to travel to Antarctica to report on the research station while bringing Moyam back home. Meanwhile, Ryu and Sung Hyo's relationship grew even stronger as they prepared their new home for the future they would share together. And with that, this K-drama comes to an end, wrapping up with a happy ending for everyone. Thank you all for watching until the very last moment. We sincerely apologize for any shortcomings in our channel. See you in the next video. Adios.